Hannah, I am trying to figure out how to get this going live stream.
Okay.
So whomever has been with us is welcome to come into the Zoom meeting, but we are also live streaming on YouTube so that people don't have to worry about. Oh, okay. It's working. But there's a little bit of a delay. But I've muted it so it won't totally distract me. Okay. I think that the live is going on YouTube. I don't really know how to work this, but I think it's working. So if people want to chat on the YouTube live, then we will try to answer questions there. And then, of course, we will leave this posted in the playlist, so whomever wants to watch it whenever will also be able to. Okay. Sorry, I'm also answering questions. Oh, shit. Sorry, Hannah, I answered that question in your text. Okay, I think we're ready. That was meant for somebody else that was asking how to get in. Let's go ahead and do a mindfulness. So welcome everyone. Sorry about the technical clusterness that was happening, but I think that we've got it settled and it is going now. Hopefully it'll be smoother next time. Mindfulness is present moment awareness without judgment. That is the definition of it. And there are a million different ways. Now I'm looking for my book and I can't find my book. I'll find it in a second. There are a million different ways to access mindfulness. Just paying attention is mindfulness. Just noticing is mindfulness. Whatever it is that we use to hold like a magnet our attention into the present moment, we call an anchor. We talked about this a little bit on the last session. But you should have a repertoire of anchors that you can go to, because sometimes you need a really heavy one. Heavy ones are like your five senses. Like I have a cookie here. So like if I were to eat this cookie, I can hear the crinkle of it. I can taste it. I can smell it. I can feel the crumbliness of it. I can see it. I can feel the weight of it. Like that's a lot of very heavy things that will hold your attention.
I have some like go-to anchors, and I like will just dig my feet. Like right now, I don't have shoes on, so I'll just dig my feet and toes into the carpet and feel that. Or if I have shoes on, into my shoes, into the ground, or just noticing my butt in my seat, or wherever I may be, just literally feeling the pressure of my body moving down into the chair or into the floor. That's one of my go-to just physical anchors you can do anywhere to remind yourself, okay, I'm here, I'm in this moment.
Pull yourself so just out the physical weight of your own body and the sensations that you feel in your own body. Those are anchors. Each one of your five senses broken down, you can focus on everything that you hear. You can focus on everything that you smell, everything that you touch, everything you taste. We can kind of create ideas or visualizations, basically can be anchors. So you can visualize like leaves floating down a stream is a real popular mindfulness activity, where you notice your thoughts, put them on the leaf and allow them to float away, or clouds in the sky, or a freight car train that is going down the tracks. So you're You're aware of the thoughts that are popping into your head, and then you're visualizing them going away somehow or another. That's a different type of anchor. But the one that we have most readily available and most accessible is our breath. And so that's kind of the typical meditative, just focus on your breathing kind of mindfulness. Sorry, I've got to stop watching this live part over here because it's like a 10-second delay. So I'm just watching myself make silly gestures. I don't think that anybody is chatting yet. I think it'll show up here. So if somebody chats, I think I'll see it, but I'm going to move this around so I am not watching myself. Oh, there we go. Okay. Make silly gestures. I don't know what I would do if like somebody, good Lord, I just spelled here wrong. These chats here. I don't know what I would do if somebody like duct tape my hands down while I was trying to speak. I probably wouldn't be able, I probably wouldn't have the capacity to speak words. Okay, so let's use our breath as one of the mindfulness activities that we're going to do today. So everybody close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing that. If closing your eyes feels too distracting or too uncomfortable or just impossible and not helpful, you can leave your eyes open. This is called Zazen, I believe, in some of the practices. And just kind of like blur your vision a little bit and just like stare at something in kind of this mid foreground, like just kind of zone out with your eyes. Like don't be looking around and like gathering new content with your eyes, just kind of like fuzz out and fade out your eyes. So eyes open, eyes closed, it's up to you. Let me do a little as you bring your awareness into this present moment. Just start with your body and notice what you sense, what you feel, what you're aware of. Notice the position of your body, the different textures and pressures that you feel. So I would imagine that you feel more pressure on the bottom of your thighs than on the top, assuming that you're sitting. More pressure on your back. And from that pressure, notice the support too. The support of your chair or your couch or your bed. The ground underneath you, the world underneath that, all of it holding you up. Notice feeling of being held up, but also the feeling of gravity kind of pulling you down and sticking you to this earth that is spinning around. And noticing your body can bring up emotions sometimes. Feelings of like or dislike, feelings of guilt or pride. Noticing sensations of pain, perhaps, or what your brain is calling pain. And here we have a unique opportunity to move towards those sensations with curiosity, just a gentle, kind openness to experience. And it feels paradoxical, but when you move towards discomfort, sometimes it softens up a little bit. So if your body is giving you any of those sensations, just notice it with a neutral, observing self. Notice your belly and how with each breath there are teeny tiny movements throughout your chest and stomach. The upward movement as you inhale, the downward movement as you exhale. And now that we're settled, we're truly focusing on our breath. Notice the sound that it makes. Notice that there's a pause after an inhale and a pause after an exhale. Those 2 points are key to the journey of your breath, the top of the hill and the bottom of the hill. And know that you're not supposed to be changing your breath. There's no need to alter it. You genuinely are just an observing witness. And just watching your body do its thing. Your body is excellent at functioning on its own. It's taking care of all kinds of systems and processes and healing and growing and changing and digesting and breathing, heart beating. Your body's doing a million things. And you don't need to influence that with your conscious self. You're just watching and getting practice at sitting back in this observing self role. And inevitably, thoughts will come into your mind. Your brain is a thought-producing machine. There's nothing wrong with that. The goal is not to stop thinking. The goal is not to stop thinking. The goal is to notice that you are thinking. Make a differentiation between the thinker and the one who notices the thinking. So when you get lost in a thought and get carried away into the future, the past, worrying, planning, 90% of the time it's rehearsing conversations. If you notice that you're doing that, let it go. Come back to your breath. A million times you might do that. And that is correct. You're not doing it wrong if you think. Just notice the thinking and come back to the breath. All right. Now, one more time, bring your awareness to your physical body and environment. Maybe roll your neck a little bit. Roll your hands. Wiggle a little. Know that you're in this place, in this time, in this moment, in this physical realm. Notice how your body is. Take one last deep breath in, and on an exhalation, open your eyes and return to the room. All right. So, Hannah, you had a screaming cat.
Yeah, we fixed it.
There's a really beautiful story about roosters. And I think it's from MBSR, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. One of the main guys that kind of started leading MBSR courses, I believe. I believe he was kind of becoming a monk. Anyways, he was at a monastery doing some real hardcore meditations. And there's a video of it somewhere. If y'all Google MBSR rooster story, you'll find it. But there's definitely a text transcript of it, but I've also seen him in a video explaining what happened. And he said he went to this monastery to try to just be completely Zen Buddhist, find his peace and his, inner enlightenment. And on the monastery, they had kind of like a farm and there were roosters and chickens everywhere. And he apparently was a city person and did not realize that the common belief of roosters crowing in the morning at dawn and like waking everybody up, they do that, but they also crow randomly throughout the day. They're just noisy little animals. And so he was trying to do all of these peaceful Zen meditative things. And there was this cock-a-doodle-doo here and a cock-a-doodle-doo there. And just these loud, noisy roosters like hopping up into the open window of the meditation room. And he became so annoyed by it and so distracted and so frustrated that he started like fantasizing about all the different ways he could kill these roosters and like how he could murder these roosters. He hated them so much, which is understandable. And eventually he came to the awareness. I think he talked to his, monk, Buddhist guide, sensei, and he said something in a horribly paraphrased way that I'm telling you, that the roosters are the meditation. Like, we're not trying to get rid of all the discomfort. We're not trying to get rid of all the noises, all of the annoying screaming cats, all of the itchy backs or cravings for food, or, like, it's not about comfort. It's not about comfort, and it's not about pleasure, and it's not about peace. And so a lot of times when people are doing mindfulness and it's annoying, they think they're doing it wrong. If they don't feel calm, if they don't feel peaceful, if they don't reach like blessed, enlightened Zen, they think they're doing it wrong. But having those roosters in our life, obviously, this is a nice metaphor of your car, making a weird noise, or your kids screaming in the hallway, or just all the annoying crap in our lives that we so badly want to just get rid of so that then we can be peaceful and happy. Like, it's those little irritations that actually can be what wakes you up and helps you allow annoying things to happen, because you're never going to have a life without annoyance and distress and disturbing kind of unpleasant things. And as soon as you stop fighting it and stop trying to get away from all the pain and all the discomfort and all the ickiness, then you're actually in your life and you're tolerating all of that. You're noticing that you wish that the rooster would not be crowing because it causes an uncomfortable sensation in your ear. And you can be mindful of the unpleasant sensation in your ear and thank the rooster. That makes us stronger when there are more things to be able to notice and overcome and tolerate and deal with. If we were raised in this, pool of womb-like water all of our lives, with all the food being intravenously given to us and like just everything comfortable and perfect, like, that sounds like a nightmare. Like, yes, it would be completely comfortable and you would not grow out of an infant stage. You have to hurt, you have to try, you have to fail, you have to fall, you have to be uncomfortable to grow and have joy and peace and all the good stuff as well. Anyhow, that's a rant. Hannah, what is your experience as a mindfulness practitioner?
We're using practitioner very loosely.
No,
Well, you know
no.
what?
If
Yeah,
you
you're
do
right. You're right.
mindfulness,
Take it
you
back because
practice
I
it.
am doing it. So you're
Mm-hmm.
right. I'm a practitioner. I get frustrated with myself for not doing it more often. And
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie's really great at guiding them with a nice, calm voice. And as we're sitting here doing it, I'm just like, that feels so nice. Like, and we know we're not chasing the nice, but
Mm-hmm.
it's so cool how you can shift your perception.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that popped into my head while we were doing that mindfulness. There's a show called Bluey, and if you have kids that don't watch it, you should be watching it.
Mm-hmm.
But they play this game where they'll say heavy, and then whoever has to act heavy, or they'll say light. And you were talking about how you can feel the gravity pulling down on you, and in that moment, you're thinking about the heaviness, and you can really feel it. And then also, if you're thinking of the lightness, you can really feel that as well. So having this opportunity to connect to all these feelings that we normally wouldn't even take time for, it's really a gift you're giving to yourself in a lot of different ways, I think.
And all of those, it's something I find just so fascinating, is that our brains are being bombarded by sensory input 24/7. So right now I have the capacity to like tell my brain to go down certain nerves and neurons and notice the sensory input of my ring finger. Like if I look at that tiny little window in my brain of like, what does my ring finger on my left hand feel like? I can be like, oh, okay, it feels like blah, blah, blah. I also have my pinky toe and my nose and the feeling of my hair and the weight of my clothes. Like all of that stuff is happening at the same time. Our brains just shut it all off because it would be overwhelming and you would be incapacitated if it all came through at the same time. But by focusing on, so doing a body scan is noticing your right pinky toe, and then noticing your left finger, and then noticing the feeling of your hair on your head, and then noticing and like intentionally kind of opening all these little windows of sensory input by choice. The more you do that, the stronger you get at being able to be like tuned into the way my left shoulder feels and not lost in my fears about my performance this weekend at the piano recital. Like you can check into like, I'm just going to focus on like what my nose feels like. And then you pull your attention away from those sticky, icky, yucky, dark thoughts that are another thing to focus on. So those thoughts will trick us into thinking like, you have to think these thoughts. These thoughts are in your brain. You have to focus on them. You have to figure it out. You have to add to it. You have to think these thoughts. And these thoughts are the only things that you can focus on. Yeah, turns out you can focus on what your nose feels like. Or, yeah.
And with some other modalities of therapy, which are beautiful in their own way, you kind of focus more on just taking away the bad thoughts. But I find that really hard. Like that's never been successful for me to just empty the brain. But when you have this tool of mindfulness and you can, instead of emptying it, just switch it out for something else, I find that to be a lot more successful.
So in acceptance and commitment therapy, and obviously this is a DBT skills training, whatever it is that we're doing. But in ACT and mindfulness, they talk about diffusion and just pulling yourself, your observing self, your self with a capital S, your soul, your Holy Spirit, like whatever your version of the word makes sense to you. But whomever you truly are, pulling that part, the one who observes the thoughts, that's really you. And then the thoughts are just thoughts. Pulling back out of the thoughts, and like you don't necessarily have to argue against them because then you're just like in the war still of like trying to like, so a lot of cognitive therapies are like, well, is that a distortion, or what is the evidence for and against it, and is that a repetitive thought? That stuff can be genuinely helpful, but a lot of times if you have like OCD, you know that you lock the door, but you can't stop having the thought, did I lock the door? Rationally, that the facts don't match it, and yet that thought keeps circling and circling and circling. So in those cases, you can rationalize, till the cows come home, and it's not going to make the thoughts any less repetitive or unpleasant. So with ACT and with mindfulness in general, you're not trying to change the thoughts. You're not trying to get rid of them even. You're just giving them less light, energy, power, attention, focus, and noticing like what a flower smells like. And then, of course, your attention is going to be pulled right back to the sticky stuff. If you just got in a fight with your neighbor, you're going to be replaying that thought over and over in your head and thinking about what you're going to say to him next Tuesday if he dares to come over and tell you that the tree is more in his yard. Like I was saying, 90% of our thoughts are made up stories of what we're going to say when that situation happens. Bless our little brains. So unhelpful. Okay, let's get back to straight mindfulness. So the more you practice mindfulness, the better you get at it. The easier it is to happen. The stronger you are, the more it happens on just a hourly, minute by minute basis. There are two types. Formal mindfulness, which is what we just did, of like, I am formally sitting down and going to practice mindfulness for 3 minutes. This is the start, this is the finish, and this is the anchor that I'm going to focus on. I'll do a guided meditation, I'll follow my breathing, I'll whatever. Formal mindfulness, like, it's a thing that you do. Informal mindfulness comes afterwards, and you're able to do it after you have gained some skills in formal mindfulness and you have the capacity to kind of focus on what you choose to focus on and notice the present moment. Informal mindfulness is just like, it just happens that while you're washing the dishes, you're like, oh, hey, look at that. I'm washing the dishes. I'm not lost in thought. I'm noticing the dishes. Hey, look at that. As I'm walking through the yard, I notice what my feet feel like on the ground. Hey, look at that. Like, you're just checking into the present moment a billion times a day. That's informal. Whereas the formal is like going to the gym and really working out. And then informal is you're a strong person in your regular life because you've gone to the gym and worked out. You have the capacity to lift a tree or whatever. So you really, really, I pray and beg and cajole people to do formal mindfulness. You have to become strong at it. You can't just all of a sudden like wake up with enlightenment and be able to be in the present moment at all times. I mean, maybe you can. I don't know anybody that has. You actually just have to sit down and do it over and over and over again. And then you will notice, like, holy crap, like, I'm much more present. I'm really hearing my kids' laughter instead of thinking about what I have to make for dinner. I am really enjoying this. I just ate one of those chocolate, like, ding dong kind of cake. Yeah. No, it's the one with like the two spirally wrap.
Cake roll.
Yeah. Just ate those. And they were kind of disgusting.
When you paid attention to it.
Right. So we've done a lot of mindfulness in college classes. I'm sure we did it in your class, where you will mindfully eat something that you have scarfed down your whole life, and you will be like, oh, this is actually
not
unpleasant. It can be real gross if you slow it down to that level.
Yeah. I had that moment with like Chips Ahoy cookies the other day, like specifically the chewy ones. I was like, these taste like chemicals. When you slow down and like take it, and and then you can focus on what you really want to eat and not what you don't eat something that tastes bad to you.
Yeah. I try to get my kids to eat mindfully, and they just like will shove such giant loads of food in their mouth, and it'll be like something that they have begged for, some kind of like sweet treat or whatever. And I'm like, dude, if you take 1,000 tiny bites, like it will last for an hour. Like, why are you just shoving this entire cookie in your mouth? But not to get into eating stuff, but it's not about the experience of the pleasure of the taste of it. You're just trying to get that dopamine hit as fast as you can, oftentimes with the food. Okay, so Hannah, do you want to talk about the what skills? Do you have your book in front of you?
Yeah, I have my book.
What did I do with my book? Let me find it.
My very mixed up book that I took out of order. So mindfulness it can seem abstract, like, oh goodness, what am I doing with this? So Marcia has it divided up very specifically into what you're doing and then how you're doing it. So the first thing that we're doing is we are observing. We are noticing all the things in our body, like Stephanie said. We are noticing what we hear. There's a really good mindfulness that's super easy. You can do it anywhere. It's like, notice 5 things you can see. Notice 4 things you can feel. Notice 3 things you can hear. Yeah, and then 2 things you can smell and 1 thing you can taste. That's a good one because you can do it anywhere, in the car, in the grocery store. So we're just noticing. Get into later, not judging, but we're just observing it. We're just seeing it. And we're paying attention on purpose. That's mindfully. We're doing it on purpose. And you can like be in the shower and like catch a moment of a vibe of mindfulness, like, ooh, this soap feels really good. And that's great. You're just adding in little bits of mindfulness. But when we really do sit down to practice, like Stephanie said, like the going to the gym portion, we're being really purposeful about what we're doing.
And on that on purpose point, a lot of times people, because obviously mindfulness is like, goodness, probably risen exponentially in the popular culture's vocabulary. It's been around for 2,000 years, but now it's like becoming known and understood. But there is a little bit of a misconception where people will say to me, like, oh, I took a nice walk yesterday. That was mindfulness. And like, I mean, it might have been if you were taking a walk and saying, I am going to notice what my feet feel like, what the gravel sounds like, what I see. Like, if you're intentionally noticing the stuff on your walk, then yes, it was a mindful walk. But if you're just walking and thinking and just kind of daydreaming and like saying, oh, that's a pretty tree, and then your walk is over, like, at what point were you doing that on purpose? Were you noticing on purpose? And so just having a pleasant experience or a calm experience or a peaceful experience, not necessarily mindfulness. You have to do it on purpose.
Yeah, valid. And once upon a time, Stephanie made us walk around the college campus mindfully, like losers, just walking around, crinkling the leaves, and no one was staring at us. We all thought
Talk
that's
about not judgmental.
no, no. It was actually really brilliant. That was one of the first like really tangible like physical anchor mindfulness. I loved that actually.
So there's a great YouTube video. Well, yeah, it's on YouTube. But it was originally done by 60 Minutes. Anderson Cooper interviews. I couldn't find the word interviews. Jon Kabat-Zinn, and does this little profile on him. And Anderson Cooper goes to this mindfulness retreat in like Big Sur or some famous place. And Jon Kabat-Zinn is like the dude that brought mindfulness kind of into the popular culture and nomenclature, and because he's a doctor and he was using it with patients, and then he developed mindfulness-based stress reduction and whatever. He's kind of one of the key players. And so Anderson Cooper goes and interviews him and participates in it for the first time and gives his personal experience. And so it's a really nice intro to mindfulness. You know, watching it through somebody who is obviously a trusted news source is helpful. And he's so like, has such a beginner's mind and like doesn't know anything about it, that it's nice to watch Anderson Cooper be like, oh, that's what that is. But they do this very slow.
Skeptical. He starts out very skeptical.
Yeah, he's annoyed by it at first because it is like very uncomfortable. That's another like misconception of like you're gonna find bliss and peace and calm. And like you're gonna be annoyed and you're gonna be irritated and itchy and like, oh.
They took his phone away and he was about to throw hands. And then you can watch like follow-up interviews where he interviews Jon Kabat-Zinn later, like years later, and he has completely incorporated it into his life every day and loves it. Yeah. So it's really cool watching that.
Mindfulness is as important as exercise. You know, like as much as we're all harped on to like eat your vegetables and move your body every day, like mindfulness is, I would say, more important than all that stuff. If I had to lose, I say all the time, like if I had to lose everything in my brain and all the capacity and skills and knowledge, gratitude and mindfulness would be the two things that I wouldn't want to lose. Like you can live a good life with those two things.
Yeah, totally.
But in that 60 Minutes thing, it shows them walking excruciatingly slow and doing a walking mindfulness. So that's what we were doing on the college campus. And it does look like you're a bunch of weirdos because who walks that slow? And as you're walking that slow, you're noticing your body being like, let's go, let's pick it up. But we're just walking in a circle.
So everybody go try it. Go try it this week for sure.
Walk as slowly as you can from your seat to the kitchen or wherever it is that you're going to go next, and notice how your body is like, pick it up, folks. Let's hurry, hurry, hurry. We've got places to go. We need to hurry and do this thing so we can be bored and then not know what to do. Okay.
So
So
we're observing.
observe. Yeah, we still need to do observe, describe, participate.
Yeah. So we're observing, and it talks about wordless watching. So maybe a word pops into your head. You know, you see a bird, you think bird, but you're just going to let the words float by. Kind of like Stephanie said, the leaves on a stream, or I like to imagine it's like a car just driving down the street. We're not really holding on to words. And then observing inside of yourself and outside of yourself. So the next part is to describe. After you conquered your observing, now we can describe. And you can put some words to what you're feeling. When you're hearing the rooster, I hear a really loud noise. Maybe it's loud, too judgmental, I don't know.
No, loud is descriptive. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we were doing that kind of mindfulness body scan, you know, I was noticing I have some pressure in my head. I'm not saying, oh, I've got such a bad headache and it's killing me, but I have some pressure in my head. I can find it, kind of feel a crick in my neck. Just noticing these feelings, kind of describing them, a crick, pressure, a sick stomach in my feeling, or a sick stomach in my feeling, a sick feeling in my stomach, or, you know, your abs crunching when you bend over. So you can label it, kind of like a little scientist. I always like an image of like a little alien coming to Earth, and it's just kind of like looking at things and just kind of observing them, and then like describing them and not judging them because they don't know what's what, and they don't know our cultures or what we're doing, but just kind of looking at it and describing it like a scientist, and not trying to interpret so much. So we're just describing who, what, when, where. If I was good at English, I would know why we always talked about that in English, but that's besides the point. But we're just observing it.
Let's go ahead, and now is a good time to even pop over to the how skills. So
Okay.
in DBT, we're on page 53, by the way, of the Spiral book, if anybody's following along. In DBT, they break down this kind of subjective, abstract experience that we are engaging in into like, what are you doing? You're observing stuff, you're describing stuff, and then you're participating in stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then the add verbs. So these are the verbs that you're doing. You're observing, you're describing, and you're participating. The adverbs, the quality with which you bring yourself or do these verbs, is you do it one mindfully, you do it non-judgmentally, and you do it effectively. So this is what you're doing, and this is how you're doing it. What skills, how skills. So popping over from the what skills of observe, describe, and participate to the how skills, describing and non-judgmentally are really connected. So you could describe, oh, I hear that damn rooster again, and he's the most obnoxious, like loud, awful, irritating sound in the world. And like, I hear this like horrible animal like being obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're describing that, but none of that is objective. None of that is factual. Those are opinions, and those are judgmental opinions that
it's a lot about the energy you bring to it.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, even describing things in a positive way of like, oh my God, this cookie is the best cookie I've ever had, and it's so delicious, and I can't believe it's so creamy and smooth. And I mean, those are kind of objective, but like, this is fantastic. This is amazing. This is the best thing that's ever happened. This is like, so putting good adjectives. Going back to like 12th grade English.
Not English, not for me.
The descriptions of the nouns, those are whatever.
I just know verbs are what you
do. So describing the experience or the thing with a lot of positive judgmental words is just as bad as describing the experience or the event or the thing in a bunch of negative judgmental ways, because judgment brings with it push away the bad stuff and pull towards the good stuff. This push pull. I don't want anything that is bad. I don't want the rooster that's obnoxious and crowing and awful and horrible and terrible, and I want him to die. Get away from me, rooster. I do want this delicious, amazing cake that tastes so sweet and good and yummy, and it's whatever. I want more cake, less rooster. And so now that you're judging stuff, you're in this constant push pull of less, more, less, more, less, more.
And instead of being in the moment, you're controlling the moment or attempting to.
Trying to change the moment.
Yeah.
And one of the definitions that I've read of stress is like not being okay with being in the present moment. And if you want less of that headache, then you're not okay with the present moment. If you want more of that candy or smoke break or alcohol or whatever it is that you want more of, you're not okay in the present moment. Like you're saying, I'm not okay right now because I need less of the bad and more of the good. If we can just shake up our judgments for a little while and say, maybe it's not good or bad, maybe it's just loud, maybe it's just sweet, maybe it's just uncomfortable in my ear, maybe it's just pleasant on my palate. Those things, again, like we're trying to just push away from being fused with these thoughts, fused with these feelings. If we just describe it like a scientist instead of judge it, we won't be so attached to it. And attachment is what will pull you down into the depths of hell. It is a very tricky, sticky thing that in your own mind will make you very miserable. So, non-judgmental. So that means that when you go to the mall, like we ever go to the mall and people watch anymore, but in 1992 when we used to go to the mall and people watch, instead of saying like, oh my god, what is Becky wearing, and oh, that is the ugliest top in the world, just say like, there's a top with stripes, there's a girl with a haircut I've never seen before. Like those are objective statements instead of judgmental. And also not judging yourself of like, instead of, oh my god, I'm the biggest loser ever, I can't believe I did that thing on that paperwork and I'm so stupid and I should have known better and blah blah blah, blah. I noticed that I made a mistake on that application. I noticed that I have feelings of anxiety in me. I noticed that my heart is racing. I noticed that my hands are clenched. So you can also observe and describe your own emotional states. And that really helps to bring your prefrontal cortex back online, give you a little bit of distance, give you a little bit of control or influence. Okay, what else do you want to say about the what in the house skills? We've only got about 10 more minutes left.
One mindfully is always like, I don't know. I mean, just on purpose and not multitasking is going to be the gag of that. So, as Stephanie was saying, someone could say they took a really pleasant walk and wasn't mindful. Parts of it probably were, but there was also a lot of multitasking. Looking at the stars, thinking about what you're thinking about. So you want to really go into it with just an objective in mind, and you're just focusing on that thing. Like you can shower mindfully, and I'm gonna take the shower, and I'm gonna pay attention to every single thing I feel and smell and every sensation. And you're doing two things, but you're really doing one. So maybe it's not the best shampoo of your life, or maybe you don't shave every hair off, but your intent is to be mindful.
So when you're showering, just shower. When
Yeah.
you're eating, just eat. When you're walking, just walk. And our brains are such crazy little monkeys. Like they will trick us into thinking that you have to be thinking all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Your brain will freak the F out if you try to stop thinking. I'll be like, no, I have to figure out what I'm going to say to my husband later tonight when he asks what we have for dinner. Like the most nonsensical conversations. I have to think about like what I might say to the gas station attendant when they say that they don't have any more gas because of the shortage of the like that's not real. That's not effective. You're not planning out like an actual strategy of problem solving. You're making stuff up in your head and then you're arguing about it usually.
And we
or
do that
just
because
fantasizing about it.
our brains are problem-solving machines. And that was like super necessary in the wilderness when it was like, I got to make sure I'm not stepping on this poisonous snake. I got to make sure I'm not walking into this bear's den. I got to make sure this berry isn't poisonous. It was super important human function. But right now, in our modern day of luxury, unless you're in a really crisis situation, um, we don't have to do that. And so because our brains don't have like that actual thing to worry about, we're just finding things to worry about.
And your brain will just trick you over and over again to think, I have to be thinking about this right now. And normally you're just walking around in circles. Unless you're actually problem solving, just shut up in your brain. Just shut up. Like, not helpful narrator that is constantly commenting on all things in my head. Not helpful. And so one of the ways out of that annoying roommate in your head is to just eat and just notice the eating. Just shower and just notice the showering. And it will just kind of calm down that annoying roommate a little bit, just kind of quiet it a little bit.
And if you need to worry, just worry. Just
Yeah, do it on purpose.
worry for 10 minutes, and you'll be so tired of worrying, you'll never want to worry again.
Mm-hmm. So whatever you do, just do it on purpose. Don't be on autopilot. That's the kind of key part of all this. Like, don't be on autopilot. Do what you're doing on purpose. Effectively just means play by the rules of life. It's not fair. It's not the way you would have it. You want to like stomp your foot, throw a fit, and be willful, but don't be too rigid. Be flexible. Have loose flexibility, but not too loose. Like just walk in the middle path, being willing and open, doing things one mindfully, doing things without judgment. And then again, the what skills are observing things, describing things, and participating. So participation mindfulness is anything that you're active in. So like eating would be participation mindfulness, walking, playing a sport, painting. You can even talk mindfully. That's kind of, it can get really weird because then you're noticing like, how does my tongue move as I'm talking? And oh my goodness, my lips are moving in this crazy way while I'm talking and I don't even know how to do. Oh, it can be a little bit of a mind mess, but you can participate in a lot of things mindfully. Just do it, and then you can kind of get into a state of flow. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. Let's end on another mindfulness. Hannah, do you have a go-to one? Do you want me to do like
My go-to is the body scan or that 5-4-3-2-1 we were talking about. That's really quick and easy if we want to do that.
Sure. Let's do it. Do you want to lead it?
Sure. Okay. So as Stephanie mentioned earlier, get comfy. You can close your don't close your eyes. For this one, do not close your eyes. But just find a comfy spot and take some deep breaths. And I want you to focus on 5 things you can see around you right now. And as you see it, say it in your head. And now I want you to focus on 4 things you can feel. And notice 3 things you can hear. And notice 2 things you can smell. And then try to notice 1 thing you can taste. Maybe it's your toothpaste or your coffee. And that is just a really great way to check in with what's actually going on right now. the actual environment you're in. It's also a really good way to remind yourself that you're safe, I think. I'm safe in my room. I can smell where my child peed, and I clearly have not effectively cleaned it up. Not ideal, but I'm safe. Um, that's an easy go-to for me.
Mm-hmm. And that brings in the description part too, because you're thinking like, oh, what is that called? That is a picture frame. And as you're describing things, it brings you back into that prefrontal cortex again and kind of out of emotion mind and into more of a logical mind and kind of a cool, calm, um, a little bit detached, one mindful place. So the describing and having to think of like, oh, what are 5 things that I see are nice aspects of that one. Okay. If anybody has any comments or questions, feel free to put them on the YouTube page, I guess, at this point. And oh, I don't know, we'll try to monitor it somehow or another. And then in future sessions, you're welcome to still come to this Zoom meeting place. If y'all have my phone number, that's what it is at 12 o'clock on Thursdays. But then we'll also be automatically putting it over to YouTube so they don't have to upload it later. So you're welcome to watch it in either place and make live comments if you want to, or if anybody is watching it afterwards, you can make comments and questions there as well. Okay, but we will be here next Thursday at noon. And we just finished mindfulness. So we got through all of the mindfulness skills. So we'll get into distress tolerance next time on how to kind of calm yourself down in a very emotional moment. And that'll take a good 6 weeks probably to get through all those skills. All right.